everyone. Welcome to Freethinkers Fireside, where we put the human and humanist one cozy chat at a time. My name is Helen, also known as Hell's Bells. And tonight, I have special guest Leslie Rosenblood. So let's say hi to Leslie. Hello, Leslie. Welcome to the show.
So nice to be here. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. So for the people that don't know you, who are you, what you do, all the things.
Yeah, so my name is Leslie Rosenblood, and in most ways, I'm just a guy. I am a volunteer for the Centre for Inquiry Canada, and I'm the host of its podcast, imaginatively called Podcast for Inquiry. And I have been a secular humanist for, I guess, little more than half my life, but I didn't really encounter the term until a little bit later. So I have spent a large part of the last 20 years when I'm not raising my kids or working in a job that is completely unrelated to all of this, working to make Canada a more secular nation. And what I mean by that is I'm a strong believer in government neutrality in matters of religion. I think that government should neither support nor suppress religious expression amongst the populace.
Fair. I agree. Especially since I live so close to a theocracy right now. I live in the United States. So that kind of brings me to my first question, which is, by the way, the link to the podcast is in the doobly-doo. So all of Leslie's links are in the doobly-doo in the chat box in the description. So if you want to go subscribe to his stuff and look at what he's up to, do that, people. Anyway, so getting to my first question, is that a concern in Canada, where a concern of like theocracy kind of like moving into secular spaces?
It's not as imminent a concern as it is in the United States right now. And if you look at Canada and you compare it to many other nations, we come out looking pretty good. But there's still enormous room for improvement. I'll give two examples. In the province of Ontario, which is where I am, where I was born and raised, we have the public school system in English and French. And we have what's called the separate school system, which is the Catholic school system, 100% fully funded. And there are historical reasons for that, which I can get into if you want me to, but it's just a matter of inertia. It was that way, and no one bothered to change it, so it still is that way. And so that amounts to about a $10 billion subsidy to Catholic education, just in the province of Ontario, each and every year. There's also just a few policies of our three levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, that amount to a subsidy, again, direct and indirect, of over $5.5 billion to religious institutions every year. So I would like to see that change. I'm not looking to shut anybody down. I'm not looking to suppress things, but I don't think that government should be subsidizing $15 billion plus every year to religious institutions that don't have to do anything with that money except pursue their own sectarian goals. Which they are entitled to do, just not with public funds.
I agree. Because like I can tell, like, in American governance, there's a lot of public money that's being rerouted to charter schools and private schools, which we don't really want. And also the homeschooling, and not that I'm poo-pooing on homeschooling, because there's a lot of secular parents that do homeschool for a variety of different reasons. But when that money is being funneled to so kids can't go to public school and learn things like evolution because they have to learn like creationism or whatever. Like I have problems with that, especially on tax money that we all have to pay, because I'm not paying for your kid to learn creationism. I am so sorry.
Yeah, we call it the public education system, not the public enforced ignorance system.
Yeah, exactly.
And there have been efforts, I know, in the States and some in Canada, though to a lesser extent, to try and put creationism into the science classrooms, or to put creationism, light, intelligent design on an equal footing with evolution, and then we can just let the students decide what they want to believe. And I mean, if you want to have those books in the library, by all means they should, but in the science class, it needs to be what the best findings and the best knowledge and the best tools and techniques of the scientific method are. And right now, our best understanding of the world and of ourselves and how we came to be does not point towards any form of creationism.
Yeah, it is. It's weird like that, how science keeps, pointing towards truth. Weird. So weird. And facts.
Well, I mean, broadly speaking, science is the pursuit of truth. It's what can we see? Let's make a prediction. Oh, that didn't work out. Let's make another prediction. Oh, that seems to work. And different branches of science use different techniques. That's why there isn't a scientific method. It's more of a scientific mindset. And then we just try and understand this universe we live in at the largest and smallest scales, and throughout all of historical time, which is about 13.9 billion years.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So how did you get involved with the Center for Inquiry in Canada?
Well, that goes back, oh gosh, probably 15, 17 years. And I had found what I thought was a great podcast. It was called Point of Inquiry, and it's run by the Center for Inquiry USA. And the host at the time was a man named DJ Grotha, who I thought was just an incredible interviewer. He was always fair to his guests, but he asked very targeted, very difficult questions, and I respected that. And it wasn't in a confrontational way, but he really exemplified the spirit of inquiry. And on one of the episodes, he was interviewing the executive director of the newly founded Center for Inquiry Canada, and they were talking about what they were doing, and I thought, this sounds great. So I looked them up, and I went to a couple events, and I listened to intelligent people talk about things in an intelligent way. And I thought, I really like this. And even better than that, I started having conversations with other people who were just in the audience, and they were fascinating folks. So I ended up joining, and then I started volunteering. And now, over a decade and a half later, I sit on the board, and I'm the secular chair for CFIC and the host of Podcast for Inquiry.
That's how it happens. You just go to like one event and then they suck you in.
Well, I don't know if it was so much that I got sucked in as I voluntarily ran towards these folks.
That is true.
People, and these are folks that all have very strong opinions and were not shy about expressing them. But what was great about them was not that I agreed with them all the time. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. But if ever you poked at them, if you said, I disagree, and you asked them why they held that opinion, they always had a reason. And sometimes it was convincing and I had to change my mind. And sometimes it wasn't. And then we could continue the conversation. But with so many people, and I don't know if you find this, but someone might express an opinion very strongly, like with ultimate conviction, and you challenge them on that. Not challenge in the sense of, I think you're wrong, but you challenge them and saying, like, why do you think that? Help me understand. My understanding is different. So do you know something that I don't? Why do you hold that opinion? Just some variation on that theme. The number of people who aren't able to articulate why they hold an opinion, particularly a very strong opinion, is very disappointing. But that I did not find that with the folks that came to CFIC. They always had a good reason for whatever opinions they held. They could back it up. And that always led to very interesting conversations, especially with those that held opinions that were very different from my own, because we could have genuinely productive, good faith conversations on a whole myriad of topics.
I think, through the Atheist Community of Boston, I do a TikTok live every Tuesday night, talking about skepticism and humanism and being an atheist, being a queer woman that's also an atheist, that's fine. But I do find that, like, if I'm talking to people that have a very different point of view, some of them are like, I may not agree with the reasoning, but they have reasons, for their perspectives. Like if we're talking about abortion, for example, and they are opposed to it, some people have very strong convictions about it. It's, and that I don't have a problem with. I don't have to agree with it, but I can understand somebody's convictions and why they came to those conclusions. Opposed to somebody, when you ask them, go, why do you think abortion is wrong? And they say, well, you're killing children. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And they can't really articulate it. It's all emotions. They haven't really, because a lot of the rhetoric, like, I'm using this as an example, is emotional. It's not rational, where you're walking through the steps of like, why is this wrong? Why is it logically wrong? Not just, it feels wrong. And I think, examining your beliefs in any sort of thing. And I think, like, we all have biases and like stuff that we emotionally react to because we're people. But having that little voice in your head going like, why are you so attached to this, is a good, place to start.
I remember about 20 years ago, Canada was considering making equal marriage the law of the land. There were a couple of provinces that through court decisions where it was already de facto in place, but Parliament was planning on making it legal across the nation, actually formalizing it. And I had a number of friends who were very much against it. And I was like, okay, like, tell me why. Like, help me understand, because I couldn't see any reason why anyone would be against two men getting married if they wanted to, or two women getting married if they wanted to, because like, if you're straight, like, no one's forcing it on anybody, right? Like, if you're a guy and you're into women, no one's going to force you to have sex with or marry another guy. Like, that's ludicrous, and nobody was proposing that, and even the sharpest critics weren't saying that. So what's the problem here? Like, it'll destroy marriage? Well, no, clearly not. And ultimately, what it came down to with every single person where I would probe and just with that, help me understand, it was either one of two things. One, my sacred scroll tells me that it's wrong. Or two, some charismatic authority figure whom I respect and listen to told me it was wrong. And that it was, and it always came down to one or both of those things, and there was never a reason that I could find, and which made me feel better in that my support for equal marriage was buttressed by that. Okay, there are no reasons to be against it that I could tell. I mean, if you're against it, even if you're attracted to someone of the same sex, but you think that there's something wrong with it, then I mean, you have a choice to make, right? And if you don't want to marry someone that you might be quite attracted to, I mean, I'm very sorry for you. That's very sad, but I respect your right to make that choice. Where I object is when you want to enforce your preferences on everybody else.
Correct. And like, again, I always say like, one of my major things is that, like, you being an atheist or somebody being a believer tells me absolutely nothing about you. It tells me what positions you hold, but it tells me nothing of like what type of person you are. Because we know that people are complicated, and there are some believers who are the most kindest, generous, open-minded, giving people. And there's atheists that are racist, bigoted buttheads. Like,
unfortunately, I know people in that category as well.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm always like, well, and I get a little bit frustrated, especially in our spaces where people like, well, I become insulting to religious people, because then I'm like, okay, listen, if you're going to convince anybody of an argument, don't insult them, because you're not going to change their mind. Because as soon as you start telling me I'm a dum-dum, I'm not listening to you anymore.
Yeah. And that's why I describe myself as a secularist, right? I mean, if you want to call me an atheist, you're not wrong. right? That's
right.
it's an accurate description, but as you say, and I agree 100%, it doesn't give you any useful information about me. It's like saying, instead of saying I'm a Canadian, which is what I am, I tell you, well, I'm not American, which is true, but you know, I much prefer describing myself in telling you what I am. And all an atheist is that I don't believe in a deity. And I mean, that's true for almost all believers too. Humanity over the course of our history has worshipped thousands of, I think, somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 gods over the course of our history. And even polytheists believe in only a very small fraction of those 5,000. So they're atheistic about, 4,900 deities or 4,999 deities, and a full-on atheist just goes one more. But it's not useful for any insights into my character, my personality, my politics, my morality. And so I tend not to lead with that, although I don't object to the term because it is accurate as far as it goes. But secularism, which is essentially a compromise, it's a political position, and it's a compromise position of live and let live, right? You get to believe whatever you want, as I do. Government is not going to favor you or punish me for our metaphysical beliefs. And the one restriction is you're not allowed to use government power to enforce your preferences upon others who don't share your view of the world. And that's fundamentally the secularist viewpoint. And it's astonishing to me how many believers don't realize that it's probably to their benefit as well.
That's what I find amazing. I'm like, I always say, I'm like, you can believe and worship however you want, as long as you're not hurting anybody. I don't care. Yeah. It's only when you start telling me and other people, even from different faith backgrounds, that they have to conform to your way of thinking. And I'm like, well, no, because what if another group try to tell you to conform and say, like, if you're a Christian, I wanted you to be an atheist and I'm going to force you to be an atheist. Like, you're going to do it. And you can't go to church anymore, and you can't believe in God, and you can't believe in the risen Christ. You can't do your ceremonies. You can't celebrate your holidays. Like, imagine if I was doing that. I'm not. I'm going like, I want you to be able to go to church, but also at the same time, don't tell me I have to go.
That's right.
That's all it is.
Yeah. The way I heard it described was, I'm on a diet, therefore you can't have a donut.
Right. Right. Exactly. I like that. I like that a lot.
Usually people can see why that's, there's a slight flaw in that argument.
I think I just find it very interesting because even when I was a believer, I never thought that, like, I was Catholic and pagan for a good portion of most of my life. I was Catholic for a while and left that, and then I was pagan for a good portion of my adult life.
Okay.
And even then, I was still like, you need to follow you need to do the thing. And I even saw, I was like, I don't care. Like, I shouldn't, because my parents, like my family didn't care, and I think I took on that attitude to live and let live. It's like, as long as nobody's hurting anybody, it's really none of your business, right. And I wish even atheists kind of took on this sort of perspective to a certain degree. Because I think that when people are in their angry atheist stage, they want to attack, and also they want to, like, I'm coming out of the delusion, so please come with me, but I'm going to do it by force rather than letting people do it gradually. And it comes from that, like what I was saying about the emotional place. It's not coming from a reasonable place. It's coming from, like, I'm going through something and I want you to come with me so we can go through it together, especially people like friends and family that might be still believers. And I get that. I do, because I did work for recovering from religion. I know. So
yeah, they say that the most vehement anti-smokers are the former smokers, and I think the same is true of religion. And I've been privileged to hear the stories of some people and the abuse and the hurt of what some people have experienced. I understand the anger that they feel. It's coming from a real place. I would agree with you. It's not what's best for society overall, and it's not the best interactions to have. But that catharsis sometimes is very necessary for their healing process. And I've been able to, be there a couple of times for a few people.
Yeah. And I think that's great. I like being in that place where people are letting go of belief or letting go of perspective and being like a soft place to land. Like, dude, I get it. I do. I get it. And it's like, I didn't go through religious trauma. Like some people have, like mine was very like death of a thousand cuts, but I wasn't like, I didn't go through like social consequences. Like right. my family still, like my family didn't abandon me. My friends didn't abandon me. And the one, like I had a couple, but I was like, well, you're not really my friend to begin with. If I change the position, that doesn't harm you. And you can't meet me because I don't hold the same position anymore. Like, like, I'm like, then you're not my friend because you're not, that's not what friendship is, So I was like, okay, I'm like, we're fine. So, that being said, moving on. So you wanted to talk about moving from a mindset to activism. What did you mean by that, and why did you want to talk about this topic?
Well, because I really want to make the world, at least my corner of it, and maybe a little bit more, a better place for my having been here. And I think most people do. And being a non-believer, being an atheist, even being a secularist is fine. It's good. But to my mind, that's a starting place. And I want people to think about, what do you want to do with that mindset? What do you want to, now that you've got your view of reality and your view of society and a broad philosophical principle, which you've been talking about. You've been talking about small L liberalism, right? Anyone can do whatever they want as long as it doesn't hurt other people, right? That's a classic liberal stance, and I think that's good and healthy. And but what I want to encourage people to do is then take that one step further to allow that level of tolerance, to the circle of tolerance, to grow. So that can be interpersonal, right? That can be by finding friends and essentially living that mindset so that people can see, hey, here's someone who's a non-believer who's still a good person. That blows people's minds when they sometimes when they meet you and they realize that you're both good and non-believer. But it's also about changing things. So there's the interpersonal level and the community level, and then there's the structural or the societal level. So it's getting involved in changing a government policy, whether it's local to your city or state or provincial or federal level. And I've been fortunate enough to be involved with some organizations to have the opportunity, and we have been to the Supreme Court of Canada as an intervener. I think in the States, it's called a friend of the court, or filing an amicus brief. Sorry, I'm not an American, so I don't know all of the terminology in the American legal system. But there's been a couple of cases that came to the Supreme Court, and we were able to provide some input. And as a result of those cases, in Canada, it used to be allowed, and many cities did, start their municipal meetings with a prayer. And that's now illegal in Canada. It still happens on occasion, but it's the law of the land is you can't.
Oh, I wish it was legal here. I so wish it
was. And
they're not supposed to.
There was another case where an evangelical Christian university wanted to open up a law school, and essentially, one of their conditions was that sexual intimacy is restricted to married couples, where marriage is defined as between one man and one woman. So if I was a student at this school and I went to my off-campus apartment and had sexual relations with my husband, I would be subject to academic discipline up to and including expulsion. And the university essentially was claiming freedom of religion, which is in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is the Canadian equivalent of the US Constitution. Freedom of religion is one of our core freedoms. And so they were claiming freedom of religion, that because it's our faith, that marriage is defined as between one man and one woman, that we get to enforce this upon our student body and our faculty. And this went up to the Supreme Court. And fortunately, in my view, this was struck down, and the ruling was very strongly in favor of secular principles. And so,
good.
We've been able to make changes. And this isn't me, Leslie, that was able to do this. Right. This was through organizations and institutions like the Center for Inquiry Canada. I also volunteer for a different organization called the Canadian Secular Alliance, which is pretty much what it sounds like. And it's through volunteering and putting in the work of building an institution and doing the research and putting in the time and effort that now Canada used to have a blasphemy law. And now we don't. It's been repealed, and we played a small part in the process that did that. And this was through the cooperation of several secularist organizations across Canada. So it wasn't even just one group. This was several groups. And so what I would like to encourage people to consider is if you have closely held beliefs, if you have a vision of how the world, your country, your state, your city, even your neighborhood can be better, then take some steps to bring that vision into reality. Because you might not succeed, but if you don't make the effort, then nothing is going to change. And if everyone can do that, then everybody wins. I'll just give one example. There's a large street near me, and it now has bike lanes. And I love cycling. It's a great way to get around town. I had absolutely nothing to do with the installation of these bike lanes, but I know that people spent over a decade with petitions and being an activist and calling for this until finally the city realized there was a demand, and then they had to do this. Then they had to do the studies, and then they got public opinion, and it took a long time. But now they're there, and it's great. And I use them like 8 months, 9 months of the year. So I'm a beneficiary of the activism of others in that sense. Because I can't do everything. Nobody can. But if everybody's willing to put some effort in to improving the world about the world around them, then they get the benefits of your efforts, and you can get the benefits of theirs. But being passive, even if we're philosophically aligned, well, that's a good start. Yeah. But take it to the next step and take some action to bring your vision of a better society, a better world, even if it's just a better neighborhood, make it a reality. And I use the word activism because it's not just you doing something on your own. There's over 8 billion of us, and I haven't found a way where me operating on my own can really affect any significant change.
That's too much work.
Yeah, right?
I'm lazy. I'm a lazy activist. I'm like, come on, everybody, let's all do it together so I can do less work.
And don't get me wrong, that's work too, right?
Yeah,
that's
it's like herding cats.
You don't have to do everything.
It's like herding cats.
It can be, and so it's not always easy, but but you're definitely much, much stronger together. So finding other people, and then deciding of the million things that can be done, choosing, all right, what 2 things are we going to do this week or this month or this year? And you focus on that and you push that forward. And that if I could get more people to do that, I think that would be, we can all make the world a better place, and we can all benefit from each other's efforts. So that's my pitch for becoming active, becoming an activist, and trying to make the world more secular, more rational, more reasonable. It's tough out there, and it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of hardship that is unnecessary, and that pains me. So I do what I can to make my life a bit better, a bit easier, a bit more pleasant, a bit less fraught, as well as the lives of those around me.
I just like, I'm a selfish altruist. Thank you, my friend Kelly, who says, like, because like if I'm being a good person, my life is easier. And your life will be easier, and it'll be great. Also, when I die, I want to die without guilt, and to know I look back on my life and know I did good. And that's another thing I want. So, I have small goals, but Nancy, yes, me and Leslie will do nipple rubs for you at some point, internet wife. So,
oh wow, Nancy, okay,
because that's what Nancy said. Listen, it's the internet wife. The internet wife tells me to do something. I have to do it. So,
yeah. So I think that just a core foundational principle, because sometimes you can face moral questions that are not obvious, and the ability, like for me, the test is, can I look at myself in the mirror? Can I meet the gaze of the person in the mirror steady and be proud of who I'm seeing there?
Right.
And if I'm doing something where that's not the case, that's a huge red flag that something's got to change. So I'm doing something terribly, terribly wrong, and I need to figure out what that is and change that. Because as you say, we're only here at best. We've got a few decades, right? 8, 9. Very few of us actually reach a century. That's not a lot of time. And I'm more than halfway there. And there's a lot that I want to do, but when I go, I want to be able to genuinely feel like I made a contribution, and that I think things are better, right? And that's key. And the best time to do that was 10 years ago. The second best time to do that is right now.
I agree. I think that right now, especially since, this is the thing about, especially living in the United States. Like, I wasn't expecting to live in a dystopia. It wasn't something I was planning. I wanted to be in my late 40s and like play video games and drink wine and hang out. And then I realized, like, oh no, I got to do work. Fortunately or unfortunately, depends on your perspective. But the way that I'm looking at it now is that, well, somebody's got, and I'm like, I'm one voice of millions. That's the thing. Like, I have a very small platform, but like the 184 of you that have subscribed to my channel, thank you. Because like, if I can put a little bit of positivity out into the world, then that's fantastic. That's why I want to have these conversations, because like I'm just giving a place for people to voice about the things that they care about and the things that they are passionate about. And like, it doesn't even have to be like, about, secularism. Like, if you wanted to come on here and talk about, Game of Thrones for an hour and a half, I'd be like, we can talk about Game of Thrones for an hour and a half.
I could talk for hours about my favorite movies, my favorite TV series.
Yeah, you could. Like, I've done it. We've talked, like, I've so many conversations have devolved into Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So I'm just
since you mentioned that, do you know what I was doing 24 hours ago?
playing D&D.
I was playing D&D. A couple of years ago. So I played it when I was in high school, and then I didn't touch it for decades, but I had fond memories of it. And then my one of my children and a couple of his friends and their dads. So we started a game together, and it was just a way for, like, the kids wanted to do it, so we were supportive. One of the dads is a DM, so it was great. And then the kids lost interest. They just got kind of bored. But the dads were having such a great time. We were loving it. We just continued the campaign without the kids, and now the dads get together, and we play D&D every 2 or 3 weeks. We have a blast doing it too. It's a lot of fun.
I'm in 3 campaigns, and I wrote one based on the apocalypse from the Bible. Okay. That I have to get a group together so I can do it. So I'm very proud of it. So, because it reads like a D&D campaign, everybody. I'm just gonna let you know, if you read Revelations, it reads like a D&D campaign. So it's a lot of fun. But I also like it. Just a sidebar. That D&D teaches a lot of skills, because you have to think creatively. 2, there's a lot of problem solving that's involved in Dungeons and Dragons. Plus, it's a lot of entertaining and creativity and imagination. That's very beneficial for people. And because, like, it really does show that the nerds are going to rule the world. So I was going to say,
like, what I like is that it's a good group. And what we do is that we role play, ROLE play.
Yeah.
And we don't do a heck of a lot of role playing, ROLL.
Right. Yeah.
Right. We roll the dice on occasion, and but we'll determine the outcome of a decision based on that. But it's really about camaraderie and having fun and character-based interactions, and it's great.
So to answer your question, Steve, my current group is playing 5e 2014. I'm a 3.5 girl. I'm a D&D biased person, just because that was the system I learned on. So I'm just gonna say, like, what system are you playing right now, Leslie, with your dad group?
It's classic D&D, first edition.
Is that like first edition? Like Gary Gyzak first? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, cool. But our DM has his own flavor, so he's written his own spells and he's created the campaign.
Oh, I love homebrew. Yeah, that's great. I love it. Yay! I love it. It's so great. Nerd stuff.
I'm absolutely a nerd.
Oh my God, I'm such a nerd.
There's no question about it.
My house decor is a mixture of my artwork that I've collected and like pop culture shit. So that's my house. And I was a goth, so there's a lot of horror, spooky things. So, and that's the world I live in. So you mentioned you do the Center of Inquiry podcast. How long have you been doing that?
So Podcast for Inquiry has been around for about 3.5 years. We started in January of 2022. And we've been releasing episodes every 2 weeks for pretty much the entire time. We give ourselves the second half of December, we give ourselves off. But other than that, it's a bi-weekly show. It's about, and what I'm trying to do with that is exemplify a spirit of genuine inquiry. I'm not out to convince anybody of anything. I'm out to understand something. So sometimes I have guests. And they're experts on a topic, and I disagree with their perspective. But I'm not trying to argue with them about it. I'm not trying to convince them, and I'm not trying to dissuade my audience from believing this thing that I don't subscribe to. I try and have, over the course of a conversation, develop as deep an understanding as I can, and I'm hoping that you as a listener will come into the conversation not necessarily knowing much about anything on that particular topic, but you'll come away with it with more than just a surface level understanding. And we do that by having a discussion with intelligence and nuance. I try and ask penetrating questions, but not in a confrontational way, but because I'm curious and I genuinely want to know. And so we do that. We do that every 2 weeks, and we cover like basically the entire. What I love about it is that I'm not constrained. I've got the entirety of the human experience. So I've got philosophy, religion, science, history, politics writ large. I never talk about party politics, and I never talk about what some politicians said last week. But I do talk about things like how should we structure our societal institutions so that we can maximize human thriving. We had an episode on universal basic income and whether that's a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Of that. I've had a couple of episodes on competition laws and the fact that we have, both in Canada and the States, this tendency for more and more industries to become completely monopolized, where one or only a very few companies dominate an industry, and some of the negative effects that come of that and what can be done about it. I had an episode about private equity, so business and economics. And I get to talk about all of these things, and I meet the most incredible people. And I think the last 2 episodes, there was an episode that just came out yesterday. It was the second of the 2-parter about nuclear energy. The next episode that will be coming out in 2 weeks is about it's all about trans issues, which I know is a very hot topic these days, and I'm looking forward to that. Coming out. It's a great conversation, and I can't wait until that comes out.
That's awesome. That's why I really like doing I did recovering from religion podcast, and now I do this, and I do the nonprofits, and I've been on a bunch of different podcasts because I'm always learning something new, which I love, and also talking to people that have very broad perspectives or certain educations or expertise that I don't got
Right.
is always because I feel like it's giving me brain juice, and I'm always learning new things, and I love it. I don't have to, and also stuff, even people I disagree with, I don't have to really dig it, but my child brought me my food.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and gave me more wine. Good child. Anyway,
well done.
So, I know I raised my children right. So,
clearly.
Yeah. So, but that being said, having these people that I wouldn't be able to expose myself to, my everyday life. The fact that, if you have a platform and you're like, hey, I want, come on my podcast, we'll talk about stuff. I think it's really, really great because the world is so interesting, and you can't learn everything you want to about it. And I'm only getting little bits of it, but it always helps keep my brain fresh and helps me have an honest, sincere understanding of things, which I really appreciate. So.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I am in the incredibly fortunate position where if I read a book and I enjoy it, I can email the author out of the blue with no connections, I don't actually know them at all, and just say, I loved what you wrote. I would really appreciate having you as a guest on my podcast. And not always, but more often than not, I get a quick response and they say yes. And it's great. And so I read a book and I get to have an hour-long conversation with the author. Who gets to do that? I can't believe that it's me. And it's
right.
It's absolutely wonderful. And I think it's a little infectious. I think that people can tell that how much I'm enjoying myself when I'm talking to these people. And it comes through, whether it's audio or video.
I mean, it's my podcast. I will eat on air. Anyway.
Sure. There are no rules.
There are no rules. It's my show. So, I think it's really what I find really beneficial for too is that also you, I can see somebody's podcast or read a book and I'm like, hey, you want to come on, you want to do a thing? We can do a thing. I love it because 9 times out of the time they say yes. And I think that's wonderful. But also too, we're like, I didn't think, like, 5 years ago when I decided to become an atheist activist, that it would lead me to, I'm going to start my own channel and I'm going to meet, like, talk about whatever people want to talk about, the things that they care about. Like, I didn't expect that to happen. I was just like, I'm going to volunteer for recovering from religion, and I'm going to do work for the ACA. And I was doing behind the scenes stuff. And then I found out that I just really like to talk. I love listening to the sound of my own voice. So I was like, oh, I'll just talk to people and have really interesting conversations. And I learned, I got a lot of skills from doing RFRX for 3 years. I got a lot of skills from that. And that kind of gave me the confidence to like do this. But I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't gotten involved in like the secular, movement and doing activism and actually wanting to put something positive out into the world. So, kudos for that. And you learn new skills and you get to be really cool people.
Yeah, Helen, you're a perfect example of moving from mindset to activism, right? And look at the rewards in your own life that it has brought you. Like it's not just that you're making the world a better place, you are enriching your own life by doing so.
So yeah, I'm like, yes, do I have some healthy narcissism? Yes, I do. Like, I love people listening to me. I think I got shit to say. I think I'm maybe a walking embarrassment with great hair, but I got a brain and I got smart things to say. As well as be wrapped in some sexual jokes and weird humor. Absolutely.
But a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, right?
Exactly. Shout out also to Dr. Ben, who gave me this cup that says, "Don't be a cuntosaurus." So I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Ben, who gave me this cup, this glass. So for Christmas, it's a very nice cup. So just wanted to give that shout out. So speaking of, what are some like skills and things that you've gained over the past decade or so you've been doing this work?
So when we started the podcast, the president of the CFIC just thought this podcasting thing isn't going to go away, and he wanted to have our charity have a podcast. And so a few of us essentially just raised our hands and we said, okay, we'll do it. We had no idea what we were doing. We were all amateurs. None of us had done anything like it before, but we just figured, all right, we'll go ahead. And we just learned as we went. And now we've got a pretty solid track record of 3.5 years. I've learned how to give a good interview, how to ask the right questions. If you look at some of the early episodes, a lot of it is just me talking. And I realized that, no, it's not about me, right? I certainly have opinions, but the whole point of my podcast, of Podcast for Inquiry, is to hear the thoughts, the ideas, to gain the understanding of what my guest has spent a lifetime obtaining. And so I steer the conversation in what I hope is an interesting direction, but really the goal is to get them to talk as much as possible. And I think I do a better job of that now than I did before. I also use a lot less ums and ers and all of those verbal tics that I had because my voice wasn't being recorded. But more broadly, being involved in being an activist, I have a much deeper understanding of how our political system works. I've gone to Ottawa, our nation's capital, and I've lobbied senior bureaucrats to make changes in public policy. I have helped, again, and I say I've helped. I've been a part of. This isn't me doing it. It's us. I'm a part of the us. But just a couple of years ago, we put together a national petition that resulted in a change in government policy so that if you are an atheist and you are being persecuted for your lack of belief, previously you were not eligible to come to Canada as a refugee, because to flee religious persecution, you had to be persecuted for your religion. That policy is now changed. And so if you are being persecuted for your lack of belief, you can come to Canada under the less complex claim system, refugee claimant system, if you're being persecuted for being an atheist. I wouldn't have known how to do that when I started, but by getting involved, and you have to be very particular, because if you don't follow all of the rules, your petition is just rejected, not on the merits, but because there are rules. There's a certain procedure you have to follow, and it can, if you're not familiar with the procedure, it can be very easy to make a mistake in any step of the way. I've written white papers. I've done the research. When I was a founding member of the Canadian Secular Alliance, and so we wanted to have policy papers. What do we think about blasphemy? What do we think about blasphemy laws? What do we think about the Catholic school system? What do we think about all number of various issues? So doing the research, understanding the arguments pro and against, coming up with what our organization's official position is going to be, writing that up, getting everyone to agree, not necessarily in a unanimous sense, because everyone has their own minds and has their own preferences, but driving towards consensus so that a majority of people are happy with it, and going through those almost infinite edits to make it a little bit better or a little bit worse, and learning to negotiate and compromise, and making it focused on the issues at hand and on what you're writing and trying to create, and not about, well, this was my idea and I don't want it to be your idea. No, it's about making the organization as strong as possible. All of that was stuff I had to learn. I didn't come into these organizations with that knowledge, with those skills, knowing how to do all of that. I had to learn. And sometimes I learned by making mistakes, and pissing people off. And then they called me on it, and I was like, "Oh, God damn it! I was wrong there." I'm like, "That's like, I don't want to admit that I was wrong. I want to be right. But if you're wrong, okay, all right, I apologize. I was wrong, and then like let's move on." And that's a skill as well. So
as my friend Cara says, who is an anthropology professor, get excited about being wrong, because that means you're learning something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I've kind of, like, yes, it doesn't feel good to be wrong, like because we all have that initial embarrassment, and like, sure, because like we're like, well, like I thought I was right. I thought I was on the right lane, and but if you can go, no, I was actually wrong about this, and you don't double down and be a butthead about it, then if you take that framework, you're like, oh, I'm like, well, now I know something that I did not know. Yeah. Good for me.
I try and like enter into most conversations with the fundamental assumption that I have something I might learn from it. So I've spent a fair amount of time and effort trying to build an instinctive intellectual humility so that I can find out what it is that you know that I don't, and maybe so that I can learn from you. And try and do that with the conversations that I have day to day in the podcast and right here on Freethinker Fireside Chats.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's the whole point of doing the show. And I think it's really underappreciated. Hi, Jason, by the way. Hi, chat. Hello, my wonderful friends and newcomers. Welcome.
Hey, Jason. Hello. I know you.
Yeah, Jason shows up a lot. Like, Jason's usually here almost every week, and I love him for it. So
that's great.
Yeah. And Nancy's usually here too, because she's my internet wife. So she usually shows up.
Well, I know them both from BajaCon.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, they're wonderful people. I'm very lucky to have such wonderful people part of my internet life. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. I do really appreciate it. I get so excited every week when when people show up and I see them every week. I get all like teenage girl about it. Like, I get very happy. I do like what you said about, like, going through this experience, and like, even with people that you don't agree with, you're still learning something, or even like entertaining a thought and kind of trying to see their perspective. I thought that I think that's very, very important, especially in online spaces where people can fall into like echo chambers. Because like, okay, like so like we're all like secularists, like atheists, and I always say, like, again, this tells me nothing about who you are as a person, but I think that it's the same with religious groups. I think that, like, if you're a cat, like I grew up French Catholic. Speaking of, my mom is from Quebec, and I grew up French Catholic. Yep. It is its own flavor of Catholic.
It is.
It is. I can't explain it unless you like know what it is or you grew up in it. It's very hard to explain because, like, isn't that just Catholic? I'm like, no, you have to understand French Catholics. Like, they're their own thing. But I'm using that as an example because even within that group, the people are very diverse. But but I think also where we don't want to homogenize people in our group, atheists kind of tend to do that with people of religious belief. And we have to be very careful of that because it tends to lead to this sort of idea that, like, you know, like right now I live in the United States, that every Christian is a Christian nationalist. I was like, no, they're not, you know, and there's been a lot of talk within our communities about, like, you know, who do we align with? I'm like, align with people that have humanistic values, like regardless of what they believe. If they're on the side of humanism and everybody having equal rights and equal under the law, maybe we should do that, regardless of like what, if you go to a mosque or a church or a synagogue or you worship nature or whatever, like, we should be focusing more on that. And I think that us having the platforms that we do allows for more of that because we're allowing to entertain thoughts, but we don't necessarily have to accept them, but see the person for who they are as a person.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And particularly as an activist, the broader your tent, the more people that your coalition represents, the more effective you're going to be. So I'm very much in favor of tactical alliances. So, you know, you and I might disagree on 99 things. We might be polar opposites in many ways, but if we agree on this one issue and you're willing to support me on this one issue, I'll support you on that one issue. Let's make progress on this one thing. And then when we've made that progress, you and I will go back to fighting on those 99 other things. But
right.
I'm not driven by demanding ideological purity or ideological conformity in all respects if you're going to be on my team. I have ideas that, you know, I have my own ideas about things. Like, that's the whole idea about freethinkers, right? Is that we don't have a whole package of ideas that you have to accept. And I think one of the strange things, and I find it unfortunate, is that if you find out who someone voted for, you have a pretty good idea of where they're going to sit on gun rights, on abortion rights, on government spending, on foreign relations. Like, all of these things are not closely related, and you can have very different ideas on all four than someone else. But we tend to have split ourselves so that if you make one choice, the assumption is, and it's a pretty good one, the problem is that it's a fairly accurate assumption, that if you know where someone stands on any one issue, you've got a pretty good idea of where they stand on, 5 or 12 others. And I would love to see the free thinking ethos become more widespread, whereby, no, you can have your own independent ideas and your own independent opinions on a range of issues that is a unique combination to yourself.
Right. And I think there's this idea that, free thinkers, that we're free thinkers, but people that don't hold the same ideologies that we do are not. And I think that is a disservice. Like, yes, I can kind of tell where you lean, based on who you voted for. But I've also found that, like, talking to someone for maybe like 10 minutes, you might find that they're not part of a certain community, so they don't understand certain issues. Like, I don't expect a white cis man living in like East Bumfuck, Alabama, to understand the nuances of feminism and queer theory, that didn't get exposed to those ideas. So if I put that onto him, that's not fair. So everything is nuanced. Everything is nuanced. Except for if we're talking about like, it's black and white. like unless we're talking about those things, like everything, especially the human experience and how we view things. Because like, even so, like my politics have changed and my personal views have changed so much in the past 10 years alone than they ever did, before that. Because I actually started to pay more attention and carry more, and actually want to be educated on something. But that's a desire I had to understand because it was affecting me and people that I cared about. Some people, if it doesn't affect them, from religion to politics to perspective, if they're not feeling it on a certain level, they don't know how to how to relate to it. And it's about exposure. That's why, travel and being exposed to like travel, or even being exposed to people that aren't like you, helps broaden that perspective. And some people don't get that. And it's not because they're terrible people. They've just never been exposed to it. You can't know an idea until you come across people that's well-versed in that idea.
Right. And sometimes you come across an idea, it's like, oh, I thought I was the only one who thought this way. Like when I first heard about the term humanism and I read what it was like, it was like, oh, there's this whole body of thought. Like it was like this. That's, of course, I'm a humanist, but I had been a humanist for many years. I wouldn't have described myself that way because I didn't know the term existed. And in many ways, it was such a relief. It was so wonderful to realize that there are other people who think that way. I'm not treading new ground here. There was a little bit of me that's like, oh, I'm not as original as I thought. I had to hang my head.
I had that too. I had that too. I was like, oh.
I mean, that was, that feeling was there. But more than that, there was a stronger current of, oh,
I love you. Love you, John.
More than that.
Keep going.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I
was saying bye to John.
Okay, bye, John. But there's a whole body of knowledge, there's a whole body of scholarship, and there's a whole community of people that belong to the humanist community. And I was like, that's amazing. But I was in my late 20s, I think, when I came across the term for the first time.
I don't know when I don't know when I came across this term. Maybe when I started hanging out. I don't know. I probably in college, maybe. But I didn't really start identifying myself as a humanist till I really became an activist, because I was like, oh yeah, I do care about other human beings and want them to thrive. And I've even started throwing this at religious people because they're like, what's a humanist? I'm like, do you care about other human beings? Do you think they should have equal rights and pursue life how they want without hurting anybody? And if they go yes, I'm like, then you're a humanist.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's not that like you believe in the ability for people to, live the life that they want to, and not anyone to repress them. And again, until you're hurting somebody, then you're infringing on the rights of other people. As long as they're not doing that, you should be allowed to do what you want to do, right? And they go, yes. I'm like, cool, you're a humanist. And once you put it that way, that it doesn't seem so foreign of a concept, because everybody, a good person, regardless of belief, is a humanist. They want people to strive and live their best lives.
Yeah, but it does mean that people are going to be making choices that you think are wrong. And
yeah,
and you have to accept that, right? That people are able to make choices that you think are to their detriment, whether it's to their physical bodies or to their eternal soul. That they have to be able to do that, and that you don't have the right to necessarily stop them. You intervene through conversation, not through force and coercion.
I think that because I've swam in the psychology pools for so long that change only comes either because the pressure to remain the same the pressure to remain the same is lessened by forces outside the person that they have to change. Like it gets so uncomfortable that they're kind of forced into a change. Which, because that's usually what, like, if anybody goes through like a paradigm shift, or they, they get like, they were fat and then they get like really fit, or they give up a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, or they decide they're living in a straight marriage and they leave their straight marriage to go marry someone of the same gender, like whatever it is, it's usually because it becomes so uncomfortable that they're forced into a change. And that's not bad, because change is hard. Like you were talking before about, like, you started, working actually in government for, secular change. That was not comfortable. And one of the things that, like, anything that's worth fighting for is not going to be easy. It is going to be hard, and it's going to be a pain in the ass, and it's not going to happen overnight. It never does. Yeah. Like, why do we have atheist podcasts? We're talking about seculars, and it's because we're just like over here going like, hey, we're here to please don't take away people's rights, and we want to talk about things like science and psychology and sociology and all these different topics, because people are interesting and I exist in the world.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm a big proponent of is evidence-based public policy.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is slow.
Yes. What do we want? Facts. When do we want it? After peer review.
Yeah, I know. Well, my personality is like, I'll take it now. Yesterday would have been better. Like that's the way I exist in my life. But also, like, just imagine, like in the universe, it's not this universe, but in the universe where scientific rigor studies were done to figure out what is the best, like, overall policy for a populace. It would take a while, and people don't like that because they're like, no, I want it now. And I'm like, listen, I know you're into, I know the dopamine's talking to you, I know. But it's like, the dopamine is only telling you the anticipation. It's not going to, it's the drive. It is not the actual result that you want the hit of. It's the anticipation that you want. Right. This anticipation is not going to gratify you right now. It's not going to give you like instant clicks on your Facebook, man. Like, you're going to have to wait. But that's the nature of science. That's the nature of study, is to look. Even economics is a scientific study of looking how those systems affect people. And, like, why would universal basic income be a benefit? Because then people wouldn't be suffering, and then they could participate within society more and get an education and have upward mobility to some degree. If you can't put food on your table, you're not going to worry about, like, am I going to be able to, like, go to school and learn how to fix air conditioners? Like, you're not going to be able to do that if you can't put food and have your basic needs met. Erickson's hierarchy of needs, people. So.
Yeah. And
sorry, that was a rant. It happens
right.
on the
show. we all have them. I have, as part of the podcast for Inquiry, every few months I come out with a diatribe where it's just me, it's unscripted, and I just vent on a particular topic that has gotten particularly under my skin. So I understand the need to rant at times.
Like Seth Andrews started doing like a tangent podcast, like, stream. And I think I need that. I think I just need to come on this podcast and just bitch for like an hour about whatever pissing me off, and then just react to the comments, just react to the chat. Sure. Let me know if that's something you want. Make a comment of Helen ranting about bullshit for an hour once a week. If you want that, make a comment. I'll take votes. Okay, so speaking of not rants, what is a current thing in your life that you're like, that is like either getting under your skin, or this actually might be related. It's getting under your skin enough that you might actually do something about it, or it's getting under your skin that you just want to bitch about. It might be both.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
while you talk about this, I am listening to you. This happens every podcast. I have to go to the bathroom because I have the worst bladder.
I understand.
So
I too have a bladder the size of a peanut.
Go. You
All
talk.
right.
I'm going to the bathroom.
All right. Well, if we go back about 6 months, I was worried about the fact that we are cooking the planet. And the fact is that we are still cooking the planet, and we're not, but nobody's paying attention to that anymore because unfortunately, the US is imploding. And that is really, really disturbing because the US, for all its flaws, and they are manifold, was really at the center of a lot of what was doing well in the world, whether it was trying to increase the incomes of many countries, providing vaccines, child nutrition, emergency response whenever there's earthquakes or floods around the world. The U.S. was far from perfect, but was, I think, doing more good than bad. And the Democratic, I hear a lot of talk about the U.S. being nearing the point of a constitutional crisis. I think that is well in the rear view mirror. And I worry about the 350, 400 million Americans. I worry about the effects it's going to have here in Canada. I worry about the effects that what's happening in the United States is going to have around the world. The greatest beneficiary of the U.S. imploding right now is probably China, authoritarian state that whose influence around the world is increasing by leaps and bounds, it seems, every day, not because of what they're doing directly, but simply by taking advantage of the insanity of what's happening in the States. I was reading an article where top scientists in the United States are being propositioned, come to China, name your city, name the university, we'll set up a lab, guarantee full funding for 20 years. Wherever you want to go, name the school, name the city, we'll set up your lab, full funding for 20 years. And that's a hard thing to turn down. And so China is going to benefit from an influx of some of the world's brightest minds. I mean, how many people in the United States? I mean, the United States has a few 100 million people out of 8 billion in the world, but people, the best and brightest from around the world, not all of them, but a significant proportion of the best and brightest from around the world would come to the States to get an education, to start a business, to do research, because the institutions in the States were world class. And again, it's not the only country in the world with that, but it was probably the leading one. And now I don't think anybody is going to want to come to the States. People that are there are probably going to look for a way out if they have a citizenship in another country. I have family that lives in the States. And later this month, there's going to be a big family event and a family reunion, and I'm not going. I'm very family oriented, and it pains me, but I do not feel safe crossing the border into the United States right now. And
I don't know why.
Yeah. So
yeah,
it's terrifying.
Very scary.
And
as someone lives here,
we are living in an epochal change. And I was mentioning earlier that one of my goals is, or one of the things that pains me is that one of my goals is to minimize unnecessary suffering, right? An unnecessary hardship on people. And all I see whenever I read what's happening in the U.S. right now is the deliberate imposition of suffering on so many people. And the effects of what's happened already are going to be felt for decades. It's just awful, and it's so unnecessary, and it breaks my heart.
as
Sorry, is that enough of a rant for you?
No, that was fine because you're speaking my language as someone who lives here, and I live in Florida, which is Satan's asshole. Though, actually, it's Trump's asshole because it's Trump's asshole. I'm just gonna say that I'm not for profit. I can say what I want on my podcast. I'm not making money.
Yep.
I think that what pains me is the lack of empathy, is like not just for the planet, but like you are a human being that exists on the planet with other human beings, and we're not a microcosm. Like the micro affects the macro. It's like, like in evolution, the little micro changes affects the long-term events of macro effects. So I'm over here going, okay, we're going to strip away rights. We're going to strip away the ability to have mobility. We're going to be serving oligarchs, blah, blah. Though they're imploding on themselves right now. It's very entertaining, by the way. I'm watching a bunch of narcissists like implode on themselves. And the world's going to burn. At least I'm going to laugh about it because at least it's going to be entertaining. But it does it. And this is the thing that I think living in the information age, and is that you have access to all the information, which also means you have access to all the information, which includes bad information.
Yes.
And I think that, and people, like when we were talking about, if we lived in a world where studies were being done to affect policy, I would like to live in that world because I think that it would be beneficial for us overall. But I also recognize myself as an emotional, irrational meatbag. And when I see like abortion rights being taken away and queer rights getting taken away, I'm like, I don't want the study. I just want you to stop. I just want you to stop. I want you to stop right now.
Well, I mean, those debates have been had. Those studies have been done. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason that we moved to abortion rights. There's a reason why we moved to queer rights. There's a reason why we moved to equal marriage, and it was slow and should have happened sooner, but we got there. And there's no there's no justification. Like if you look at history, it's the people that dehumanize others and then attack them most vulnerable in society
and never
the heroes.
It never does.
and it happens, and we've done it again. We've done it time and again. But these are not the good guys.
Fascism, like if you're a fascist and terrible to other human beings, it's never going to work out. Like history is not going to look upon you kindly.
Yeah, I guess the idea is that as long as it's us and we are oppressing them, then it's going to be good because then we come out on top. Yay, us. But
I don't understand.
Of humanistic philosophy is that there isn't them, right? Like there's only an us, right?
Right. Like I always say, there is no parents. Like there's no sky daddy. Nobody's holding the reins. It is us. Like we have to deal with each other, and we have to exist in the world, and we have to figure out what do we owe to each other. And if we're treating other people like commodities and not human beings, like listen, even people I vehemently hate. I hate Elon Musk. I hate Trump. I hate Stephen Miller. I think they're terrible pieces of shit. But I also recognize that they're human beings. And I also recognize that I don't think it's going to happen. But weirder things have happened. If they would suddenly grow and change, because it has happened, where people gain some empathy and become better human beings, it has happened. And I'm not the one to say, if that's going to happen or not, and enforce it or whatever. But even still, like I want those people to become better people. I want you to have your come to Jesus moment and, grow and change and become a better person. I want that for you because everybody should have that. But at the same time, I'm still going to fight against you because you're just taking rights away from people. and you're causing real actual harm. Like, I live in Florida. It's hurricane season, and because of cuts, we're not going to be able to predict when hurricanes are coming. That's a very major thing. And you were talking about global warming. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, and like when you think about those two things, like, well, I want you to change to be a bad person. But also the time, like, you're kind of fucking me. Like my empathy kind of goes down.
Yeah.
Because I'm selfish.
The goal is not punishment or retribution. The goal is to get these people out of the positions of power where they are able to impact so many lives in a negative way, right? That's needs to be. We need to put the constraints on so that they cannot harm people to nearly the extent that they already have and are going to, and to get them out of those positions of influence and power, and put people and restore in people to those positions that are going to make decisions that A, are based on fact, and B, are going to help the plurality of people. I think it was South Carolina. There's one of the states that on a state level banned the words climate change in any government document, banned the study of the effects of global warming, banned the study of what the effects of rising ocean levels are going to be. It just becomes denial.
This happened in 2024 in Florida.
Okay, well, so
Florida did it.
You know viscerally.
So, thank you, DeSantis. Fuck you.
And it's like King Canute, right? Ordering back the tide. It's not going to work, right? Or look at what happened in the Soviet Union with Lysenko.
I think there was like a emperor or something like in an ancient civilization that got so mad at the weather that it like whipped the ocean because it like flooded. And I'm just like, sure, let's whip the ocean. That's fine. That will teach it a lesson. And I'm like,
so yeah, you can rail at the ocean's bad behavior, or you can recognize that tides and violent storms are going to increase in height and intensity, and you can take steps to mitigate the effects of what you know is going to happen. And if you are simply going to be in denial and you're going to say nobody can talk about it, and so we're not going to prepare, we're not going to let anybody else prepare, then there's going to be mass flooding. Then there's going to be worse storms with higher casualties and greater devastation. And that is going to be the effect. And I, for one, would rather that didn't happen. And it is within our power, collectively as a species, to mitigate those effects. But we're going to have to acknowledge the reality, and we're going to have to come up with a plan that is fact-based and science-based, and we're going to have to cooperate. Right, we're
with people you're not going to like.
We've already baked in so much warming into the atmosphere, right?
Like, we're going to have to cooperate with China. I know we don't like China, but if we're going to fix this problem, we're going to have to cooperate with China. That's the reality of it, because they produce so much of our shit.
Yes. We're going to have to cooperate. Like, so much of the equatorial regions of the earth where a lot of people live are going to become uninhabitable. Southern Europe, the Indian peninsula, like that's going to get so hot that people are not going to be able to live there. And so they're going to be migrating north and south to cooler climate. And we need to be ready for this migration.
Like, so here's a question. Is there a concern with refugees in Canada? Like, because we have a thing, like, because border and immigrants are bad, apparently, according to, terrible people that live in my country.
We've got nothing in Canada to compare with the rhetoric and the practices of what's happening in the States. Immigration is a political topic of concern, not so much refugees, but the consensus seems to be at the political level that immigration is still good, but the levels that we've had for the last few years was too high. So we need to bring it. We need to still have immigration, but bring down the levels. And our current government is planning to do so gradually over the next 3 years.
I don't know how you temper that, because with climate change, people are going to, even like, ours is violence and cartels and stuff happening in South America. Like, that's, which I think, yes, like, we should be definitely giving people sanctuary against having to deal with, like, gang crimes every single day. And you can't even go outside of your house, and you're constantly worried about, like, your children being gunned down or yourself. Like, yes, you're living with incredible violence. You should be allowed safety. I don't know why this is an issue. It really bothers me, but that's a different different conversation. But actually it's the same, because the climate crisis is the same thing. If your house is, whether it's an existential threat from a gang, like the cartels, or the planet wants to kill you, it's the same thing. You're going to seek safety, because that's what human beings do.
One of the episodes that I had earlier this year on Podcast for Inquiry was with a woman named Gaia Vince. And she wrote a book called Nomad Century. This came out in late January. And like, her whole thesis is there are going to be tens of millions.
I'm going to put her link in the doobly-doo.
By the end of the century, there are going to be hundreds of millions of climate refugees streaming north, right, or streaming south, if in a few other places, but primarily streaming north. And we need to be ready for them, because they are coming. Because we've already cooked the planet to such an extent that there are regions that are going to be uninhabitable, and people are going to flee uninhabitable regions to where it is habitable. So we need to start preparing our cities and ruggedizing them for more extreme weather, and we need to start building the infrastructure to support many, many more people that are coming our way in the decades to come.
And I think that's the thing that I don't know, like, maybe it's just me. No, I don't think it's just me, but like, I don't understand the concept of, like, borders. Like, I just don't. like I'm American. I grew up in the United States. Like, I understand that. But I don't understand, like, why certain groups of people get to live here and other groups of people don't. Or like, and like, yes, I want people to, like, I want to make sure that, they're not, like, part of a cartel and going to bring violence and stuff into, like, I understand that type of stuff. And there's a way, and the thing is, though, becoming an American citizen is such a difficult process on its own. It takes 2 to 3 years. So it's not something you can, like, walk over and just be like, well, I'm gonna become American. Like, that doesn't happen that way. Also, you can be an illegal immigrant and you still have to pay taxes. So again, and I hate saying illegal immigrant. They are undocumented. I'll say that, because I don't like saying illegal, because nobody's illegal. You're just undocumented. Okay, you don't have the proper papers. Fine, I don't really fucking care. Like, and I think it sounds so gross. And because I don't like this idea that, like, other people are better than another group of people based on where you're born and the circumstances that you live in. I'm always like, I'm looking at, like, how you're treating other people. And if you're treating other people like second-class citizens, I tend to think you're an asshole. That's my view. I don't care. Like, I grew up with a lot of privilege. I understand that I have that privilege, but it's just because my parents, my dad's dad immigrated from Albania here, and my mom immigrated here from Canada. That is the only reason why I have privilege. It has, and I happen to be the right skin color. Right. That's it. And and that's the thing. Like, if you think about it for 2 seconds, you're like, isn't that kind of like arbitrary and fucked up? Yes, it is.
It is.
Absolutely, it is.
I mean, and, like, even within the States or even within Canada, right? How wealthy were your parents? Were you able to
Right.
come home? Were you able to come home from school every day, assuming that you went to school every day, and there was always food in the house? Because a lot of people in Canada and a lot of people in the States, there is no food, or
Right.
there's not food every day. So even the opportunities within each house or within each country is very great. And of course, as you said, between countries, there's tremendous inequality and lack of opportunity for so many people.
And it just kind of drives me crazy. like and I understand it's nuance and it's well, no, it's just late stage capitalism. I'm like, why am I trying to like make it simplified? It's late stage capitalism and lack of empathy, and having access to too much information. Like I guess, again, I'm talking about my privilege. I'm gonna lay down my privilege. I got the opportunity to go to college and got indoctrinated by the liberal school system that I'm able to vet research and I understand what I'm looking at and I'm able to know and do I fall for emotional bias once in a while? Yes, because I'm a person.
Right. We're all susceptible to lots and lots of biases.
Right. Correct me. Please correct me if I fuck up. Please do. But for the most part, like if it's a topic I'm like, what is the actual research on this particular topic? What is it? And that's because I got scholarship and I was able to actually learn how to vet. A lot of people don't have that privilege, or or they haven't looked at the way their biases affect them. Like, I totally have bias. I got so much bias. Like, I know I do. And call me on it. Please do, because I'm a person. I'm going to have bias. I'm going to fuck up. Yes. But I know that, and I'm going to own it. I think for some people, they don't want to be wrong so much that it inoculates them to like seek out conspiracy theories and the sort of like, oh, I'm discovering new things. I know the truth. And it's like, no, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Like, facts are facts.
So I have a pet theory about that. I don't know.
Okay, I love a theory.
I don't know if it's true, but we are almost drowning in narrative, right? Our books, our TV, our movies, and even our video games. And it's all about the main character, right? The hero, right? It's the one person who's able to...
Oh, you're getting Joseph Campbell on me now.
One person who can change the world. Yep. And one of the things that I've learned through the activism, and I said this earlier tonight, is that, I have been fortunate enough to be part of groups and of organizations and institutions that have affected change. I think that I've been lucky enough to be a part of that. But that's because I did it as part of those groups and organizations. And right. if you dig into the change, you'll see the names of the organizations. You're not going to see Leslie Rosenblood in the paperwork, right? There's no fame and glory or spotlight on myself or on the many other people who were part of the groups, right? But people think that they are the protagonist. They are the lead. They are the main character in their own story. So they've got to have these big epic battles in their life to give it meaning, because that's what we see in all of our superhero films. That's what we see in all of our fantasy novels. That's what we see in all of our detective and cop TV shows. And that's not really how it works. right? We may be.
I wish it was.
Well, but do you? Because are you the main character or is someone else the main character? Which story is being told? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's true.
I
Well,
don't
like,
want to be
well,
the
we
red.
have.
I don't want to be the red shirt security guard on the Enterprise beaming down to the planet. Because
Well,
that
also too,
doesn't
like
last very
even
long.
like in like the Star Wars universe, like being a Jedi is not really a good thing because it teaches you not to connect and cut yourself off from your emotions, and then you become like an incel. So maybe not to be a Jedi. Like it seems like a very noble pursuit, but if you really look at it, like no, you're taught to not connect with your other, like you are the lone person that is able to like use the force or whatever. It's kind of like Avatar the Last Airbender. Avatar, like Aang's taught like don't connect, and then he's like, no, I'm gonna connect. Like I care about my friends, I care about my family. It's like, yes, that is the correct path. Empathy is always the correct path. Good empathy, because
Yeah,
the
well,
empathy is just the
it has
ability to
to
recognize
be,
emotions of other
right.
people.
Too much empathy, like empathy, can be misdirected and can be
Yes,
manipulated as well, right? So that
healthy
can,
empathy.
yeah, yes, there has to be a mix of being intelligent and thoughtful and considerate and empathic about things before you commit to an action.
I think that's why, like, for Eurocentric, The Lord of the Rings is Frodo is my favorite hero because he's damaged of having to carry the burden to save the world. He doesn't, and it becomes such a burden that he leaves the world. Like, I think that is a more realistic portrayal of the lone hero than like happy endings. Like, because it's going to fuck somebody up if they have to be like the lone person to like change a system, like we like people talk about like Rosa Parks. I'm like, no, I'm like, she was a symbol of a lot of people that were like, hey, there's a lot of social injustice. I just happen to be a Black person. Please treat me like I'm a human being. Give me civil rights. Like, she was just a symbol of a whole system of people that were working visibly and in the background trying to get rights for people. And I think that kind of gets lost in symbolism of the hero versus like there's always somebody like has to do like the public facing and has to be a voice, but there's so many people behind them doing the work.
And the other thing about thinking of yourself as a hero is that it carries with it the implication is that anyone who disagrees with you must be a villain.
Right.
And that can be a very dangerous way of thinking.
Yeah, I'm living that right now, living in the United States. It's so great. like and I just like I think one of the things that you exemplify, like from having this conversation with Leslie about like how important like having this mindset about like activism, that it is not just we are a network of people that just want to make the world a little bit better while we're here. So I really appreciate you for being one of those voices in whatever way that you can. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm definitely going to have you back. It's like it does my cold Black soul, dark soul good. So where can people find you? It's also in Jubilee Jew, but go ahead and tell the people where they can find you, how they should contact you, and all the things.
Sure thing. So best thing is if you like what I had to say, you're going to love Podcast for Inquiry. That's available wherever you get your podcasts. If you really want, we put it on YouTube as well. So look up the Center for Inquiry Canada, and that's Center CENTRE because we are Canadian. And so we've got a YouTube channel and we post our podcast there. I have a personal blog. It's opinionsquestions.blogspot.com. And so I write essays on all sorts of topics there, as well as post about the podcast. And I'm the only Leslie Rosenblood in the world, so you can find me on various pieces of social media.
He's the only one.
Yes. Well, Rosenblood is a name.
Oh, Rosenblood.
invention of an anonymous Canadian customs official about a century ago.
Oh, really? I thought I thought it was just a really cool name. So I appreciate it.
And it's that too.
It's very cool. Like it definitely sounds like you're a rogue in a D&D game. like it sounds like a rogue last name. so I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, with Rosenblood, I mean, I fit right in.
Yeah, like it sounds like, or an assassin. Like you're definitely an assassin, or you're an assassin or a rogue, or both. So.
Yeah, clearly I've made poor choices in my life because none of those represent me at all.
But it's like an alias, like you're spooky.
I'll go with that.
Do spooky things. All right, so so what I have coming up on this Sunday, I have John the Skeptic. That's going to be on this coming Sunday at 7 p.m. I should probably pull up my calendar, because if I don't pull it up, I cannot tell you who's going to be on my show. Also, next Thursday. Okay, so John the Skeptic. What? My cat is stepping on my keyboard. Please move, Bellatrix. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what's coming up? Okay, so Leslie was here. John the Skeptic is going to be here on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Graham Martin, the cross examiner, will be here on Monday. And then A.T. Coffee, who is, I met him through Recovering from Religion. He was a he was a pastor for 30, 40 years. And then he decided to become a secular activist. Wonderful, he is a big sweet potato. I met at the Recovering from Religion excursion. He is wonderful. So also Graham is wonderful, and John wonderful. I'm not being biased. Also Dr. Ben will be here on the 14th. And Miss Non Sequitur, who always figures my chat, will be here this month. And also Coleman Matt Watts will also be here. So I have a lot of interesting guests coming up. Please like and subscribe and do all and share it. Listen, and also if you want to give me money on coffee, so I can pay for my Streamlabs account, $27 a month. That's all I'm looking for, guys. I'm not looking to make money. Pay for my Streamlabs account so I can have wonderful people like Leslie on the show. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Leslie, thank you so much. I'm definitely going to have you back. This was a really wonderful conversation. Happy Pride, everybody. It's Pride Month. So go participate in some rainbow capitalism. Also, give some money to someone like queer charity, like the Trevor Project or Mermaids. Go find a really cool queer charity, give some money and time to support your local queers. Buy them a drink, be kind. Everybody just be kind and wonderful to each other. And I will see you all here on Sunday with John the Skeptic. Nancy, nibble rub. Nancy, since you're here. All right. Love you guys. Have a great night. Bye.